All right, English Muffin by Electro Harmonix. In its stock version, Electro Harmonix claims that this is a high voltage, 300 volt plus pedal and all that stuff, and it's pretty much true overall. But when you really look at the voltages, well, because there's some pedals out there with 12 EHX7s that run on like 12 volts or 9 volts, which is ridiculous. This is all like almost there, but some things can be done with this pedal. So here the schematic. What draws me to this pedal, and I think it's fantastic, is that this pedal is actually a Marshall 2203 circuit in a little preamp package. Like, the architecture of the circuit is the JCM 800 2203. The good JCM 800 circuit. You just have to go on and change a few values, and you got yourself an awesome pedal. And I also went a step further. You see, on a 12 EHX7, you don't want to drop under 100 volts. If you drop under that, it starts sounding grainy and all that stuff. And that's what happens in the stock version of the English Muffin. It goes a little bit too low. The schematic says 129 volts, but it's actually a little bit lower than that, and it's too low. And there's something that really busts them, is that the schematic actually calls for a 14 AC volt adapter, and every adapter for these English Muffins are 12 volt AC. So as you can see, mine is modded here. So you got the stock 12 volt going in for the 12 EHX7s, and then I found, I tried dozens of AC adapters, and I found what is it? Is it 14 or 16? Just a sec. At some point I was using a 16, but this is it's 14 AC. Anyway, it cranks the voltages a good notch higher. And this pedal is totally modded. I'll try to make this document available online, but this schematic of everything I've done, but I've pretty much just went through the circuit and changed the values that are not what they should. Like the mid pot is only 10K instead of 25, and a few different things like that. And once you take the time to mod this pedal, personally, I spent many years playing with JCM 800s, but now I've gotten rid of them because they're a little bit too much of a one-trick pony. Like, now I play with different other amps, but I think it's really fun to, have this JCM 800 preamp in a box, ready on tap to kick in and then just get rid of, and it's a lot smaller and a lot cheaper than an actual JCM 800 head. And once modded, it sounds pretty damn good. So there we go. So I'm just gonna pause this video and kick this all on and let you hear it. So, and being a JCM 100, you can put all the favorite pedals that people would put in front of JCM 800s to make them screen a little harder. Anyway, these two pedals, they're true bypass. So when they're off, they don't affect the sound, just so you know, okay? And I'm playing through Fender, what's that thing called? Hot Rod Deluxe, the third version, with the black panel. I'm sure the previous versions were every bit as good. And I'm playing through this 212 cab, and this cab is loaded with one G12H30 and one G1266. I like to mix speakers, sounds pretty good. You know, I like to use one speaker with a large magnet, 150-ounce magnet, and another Celestion with a 35-ounce magnet. They seem to cover, you know, hello poulet. Anyway, okay, something I forgot to say here is that there's a lot of mods available online for, well, just taking this to the JCM 100 circuit is a huge step, but there's tons of mods available online for the JCM 800, and you can open this box and try all those mods all day, anytime you want. But I'm just gonna say right away what my favorite JCM 800 circuit is. It's the top hat. Hold on, that's just the basic JCM 800 circuit. But it's the top hat amplexador circuit. It's phenomenal. It's what the JCM 800 should have been, you know. You know, the JCM 800 circuit, where is it? The clean channel isn't really usable. It's just totally a compromise, you know. It cuts the circuit and go place itself at this before the second gain stage, and it's unusable. You know what the top hat amplexador does is instead it's like a plexi, it's like one channel of the plexi circuit, and then you switch in, which is totally usable, you know, and then you switch in the third the gain stage, because you know in a plexi you got two gain stages mixing together into the second, and in a JCM 800 you got the three stages one after the other. Well, what the top hat amplexador circuit does is you got, you know, those two stages. This one doesn't count. This is the cathode follower for the EQ, so it really happens before this. And then you switch in so you switch between a plexi and a JCM 800, both totally usable. So check this out, top hat amplexador schematic. Okay, I'm gonna pause this and make you hear how I don't have a before sound, but I'm sure there's other videos where you can hear how this thing sounds stock. Okay, just a second. Okay, we're ready to rock. Just try to place this thing and not have to put it down. At least you can see something. So this is just my clean sound. I'll pull the delay off. Anyway, it's a little bit out of tune, but fuck it. Alright, so now I'm kicking in the English Muffin modded. So just off again. Clean sound, you know. Just to give you a reference here, I'll turn on a Boss SD1. Okay, just so you hear a point of reference. Okay. Nothing compared to this. See? Boss SD1. Sounds like total crap. Mixar. Nothing like the gain of the English Muffn. XR distortion just for fun. You know, just for reference, you know, back to the SD one. It sound like a can of soup. While you're there, look at those cool speakers. Halotone G12H30. The same as a Celestion, they just do a special treatment. This is a G1266, the G12T66. It's a special speaker they did for the Marshall Hayes series, which is total mediocrity in itself, but the speaker that Celestion did for that is pretty good. Like the G12H30 gives you the bottom end, and the G12T66 really has this vintage Marshall crunch. Sounds totally better than a greenback to me, if you ask me. I got a few greenbacks and those cabs and different speakers. Anyway, one final thing I need to tell you. There's quite a bit of stuff to change in there, like lots of values, like all these things, you know. Each value has an R something for a resistor and a C something for a capacitor. There's a bunch of stuff that had to be changed. One of the major things that had to be changed too is, you know, the filtering. One thing you know about plexis is they had lower filtering. You see here? Huge 100 microfarad capacitors. Well, plexis had 22 or 33. Even older ones had 16. So I had to change these two here, because I've played a lot with plexi circuits, and when you beef up these reservoir capacitors, they sound stiff and fuzzy. And you know, I went all the way with this thing, you know, and also to have a different power supply between your 12AX7s and your B plus voltage, I had to you know, scrape off with the Dremel the place where they meet each other. You see, I had to, these two traces here, had to you know, totally scratch them off and wire a new thing. And after that, you can play with different AC adapters. You know, you can go even higher than I went. And hold on, I got another paper where I wrote down all the voltages. Just a sec. Alright, so I found my old notes. I did that like a year ago anyway. And you know, in the tube amp, what feeds the tube's plates? You know, it's the B plus line that they call, you know, it, and every so on there's a resistor that drops down the voltage a little bit, and then there's another reservoir capacitor. And what's important here is you know, the voltage that we saw, and it's reverse, you know, it goes from end to beginning, you know. So this is the voltage that there was stock on the first 12AX7, 88 volts directly on the plate, which is under your 100 volt cutoff, you know. That's why stock it has 12AU7s instead of 12AT7s, because 12AU7 has a much lower gain factor than a 12AX7, and it's a tube that's typically used in a pedal that's starved for voltage and needs to not sound too grainy and all that stuff. So obviously in mine, I swapped them for 12AX7. So this is the voltage that the first 12AX7 was seeing, and that's what the second one was seeing. So this is different adapters that I tried, but the one I settled for, you know, this 14 volt AC adapter, you know, now the first 12AX7 right on the plate sees 139 volts and 147 volts. That's a huge difference. Because when you know, when you lower the voltage too much, you know, EVH made a lot of testing lowering the preamp voltage, but there's a point where it's too much and it starts sounding fuzzy and thin, and it sounds more and more like a cheap transistor than a tube, you know. So there's a limit, and it's pretty much 100 volt to me. That is, you don't want to go under that. And this pedal was kind of way under that at 88 volts. So what you were hearing there was, you know, I had to try a couple. You know, you must be wondering, how the hell am I going to find a 14 volt AC adapter? Well, you can check on eBay. But I went in, how do you call that? Thrift stores, you know, where they sell used clothing and stuff. They often have, you know, Value Villages and Salvation Army and all that stuff. They often have a section with old electronics, and you find a pile of old adapters. I did spend some time, you know. I tried almost 8 different adapters until I had one that had correct voltages. You know, some were, because, you know, a 14 volt adapter, once under load, is gonna behave quite differently, you know. Many times it's rated at 14 because they expect that once you load it, it's gonna go down to 14 under proper load. But if you measure it unloaded, sometimes they measure 21 volts AC. Remember, we're talking AC here. We're not talking DC, because you need the AC to hit the little transformer in there to multiply your voltage. And this is a very small load. You know, in the tube amp, what's taking all the juice is the heaters, not the plates. The plates take very little juice. Well, just a few milliamps. So what happens is that this didn't load enough the adapters that I found. So after trying a bunch of them, you know, I'll show you the adapters the adapter that's doing the trick. Hold on a second. This is it. It looks a little bit wasted because I removed the sticker, and then I decided, hey, I'll put it back on just in case I see another one like this. And I've got a few of these pedals. I got the wiggler there and the black finger. I figure if I ever mod those, I'm gonna have an adapter that brings these preamp tubes right on the spot. So anyway, this is taking longer than I expected, but anyway, you can ask me questions in the comments. And another thing too, there's a lot of voltages in this thing. You could definitely hurt yourself. This is not a simple electronics project, you know. I spent years studying electronics, and if you really want to mod things, you're gonna need to sit down and learn some electronic basics, you know. And I don't have a step-by-step how-to, you know. You just need to open this thing and identify the parts and swap them and stuff, you know. Alright, okay, bye.